you my why. So in 2015, I picked up a paintbrush for the first time since my childhood. Now, I was a career educator. I was educating since the mid-90s. I was in traditional education. I was doing my thing. I was very focused on my career. But somewhere around the 15-year mark of my educational career, I got married. I had children, not necessarily in that order, but don't judge me. And things started changing for me. My focus started changing for me. And then in 2015, I was funny because I used to tutor for the SATs, and I was tutoring one Friday afternoon, and I texted my husband, because we usually had date night Friday night. We had a babysitter, and she would just let us go out and be adults for the night. And we would always do things like we'd go to Target, we'd go to Costco, we'd have an early dinner, and we'd come home. We were pretty lame. But this Friday, I was scrolling through my phone while this kid was taking a practice test, and I saw an ad for a painting with a twist class, like one of those, where like you drink wine, you hang out with a bunch of people, and you like paint a palm tree or like a turtle or something. And I texted my husband. I saw an elephant on this ad. It was like this paisley elephant, and I was like, I want to do that. So I texted my husband, and I was like, you want to go to one of these painting with a twist classes? And I sent him the ad, and he was like, typical husband. No. He's like, I don't want to hang out with a bunch of women and drink wine and paint. He's like, but what I will do is we'll go to early dinner. I'll take you to Michael's. I'll buy you anything you want. And then we'll go home and we'll paint at the dining room table. I was like, sweet. So we go to Michael's. Oh my God, we have no idea what we're doing. We get like the variety pack paint sets. We get like the bargain canvases. We didn't know. And we go home and we sit at the table, and I painted him the elephant that I saw on the ad. I was like, Robbie, I'm going to paint you an elephant. I painted this elephant. And he was like, oh my God, I think you're good. And I was like, I think so too. And something in that moment, something that day had awoken in me that had lain dormant for decades. I was always a creative kid. I was always into artsy stuff. That was always my jam. But life happens, and you take the road that leads you, and you wind up doing, you have to survive, right? Life happens, life is rough or whatever. And I never really pursued being an artist. But that day, that little girl that always wanted to be an artist when she got older, that day she woke up. And so every day after that, I would go to work, I would come home, I'd feed the kids, I'd put them to bed, I'd put the sheet on the dining room table, and I would paint. And I was like crazy. Like this went on for months until I found my voice. I painted a mother and child painting. And because I was a new mother, I was like, oh my God, other children. Then I started painting these independent women. Then I started painting animals, and I was just painting anything that inspired me. And then I would go to work, and I had this beautiful office at work, and I had paintings all over my walls. I was giving paintings away. I was like, you get a painting. I was like, Oprah, you get a painting, and you get a painting. Like I was like out of my mind. And then about 6 months into this craziness, somebody commissioned me to do a painting. And I was like, I could get paid for this. So then I started doing commission paintings. Then I started taking my paintings and going around to like local bars and restaurants and looking for exhibitions. And then I was doing like the local stuff. Like if we had like a fair in the area, and I would get a booth, and I was doing art festivals. And this evolved rather quickly. So January 2015, I started painting. All through the following school year, painting. By 2016, the writing was on the wall. I was now miserable in my job. I had such a passion for this thing that was evolving rather quickly, and the dissonance started to become really great in my job. And then by the spring of 2016, the writing was on the wall. We'll just call it a self-sabotage. I mouthed off to the wrong person. I worked in a private school. I mouthed off to the kid that his father's name was on the library. I got it was like a thing. It was a thing. It's in my book. It's in 10 Recommandments. Feel free to read it. Was not a proud moment for me, but that's what I knew. It is time for me to get out of here. So I told my husband, I was like, Rob, I can no longer do that when I know I could do this. And at the time, we were both doing really well. We were both making six figures. We had just renovated our house that was like near the beach, like in this little beach community in Fort Lauderdale by the sea. I drove the fancy car, like the whole nine. Like I was like, I made it like in my career or whatever. And like I said, he was doing relatively well. And he was like, you want to do this? He's like, I'll support you. He's like, but we have to sell this house if we're going to live on one income for a while. And he's like, in that fancy car that you drive, he's like, you can't drive the fancy car. We have to get a car that's paid for. So we put the house on the market, handed the keys to the fancy Mercedes, and within 6 months, we moved out to Jupiter Farms. We moved to this rural community, living on one income until I figured it out. And I couldn't have been any happier. It was crazy. Rob, he ordered this huge shed, like probably the largest that you could like bring it on a trailer, and he mapped it out for me, put an air conditioning unit, it had a loft, put windows, put flooring, the whole thing. It was my original Ubuntu room. And I painted there for 2 years out in the wilderness. But what I didn't realize in that shift, in that Dana's got to paint and we're going to move out to the woods and we're going to sell our house and all this craziness, was I had begun to embark on an unintentional spiritual journey. I had no idea that moving out into nature, that following the joy, that aligning with people that were more in tune with me, that appreciated me for my gifts, that was going to open up something in me and expand in ways that I never could have imagined. So I painted for 2 years, and now I'm aligning with all these people. Like, I'm meeting Reiki healers. I didn't even know what a Reiki healer was. You couldn't throw a cat in my backyard without throw a cat. You ever hear that expression? But you couldn't throw a cat without hitting a psychic or a medium or a channel or a Reiki healer or another artist. Like, I'm meeting all these people. So then I decided I was going to create a wellness retreat on my property that incorporated this spirituality and this creativity. And then I met a whole new group of people. Then I opened Ubuntu Fish Gallery in Stuart, Florida, and I ran that for 4 years. And then that expanded. So my painting expanded to the spirituality, to this intuitive stuff. I opened this gallery. Then I partnered with an old friend of mine from college, and we started this online university, which evolved into Phenom Publishing. And then I started writing all these books. And then my creativity continued to expand. And then I was doing podcasts, and then I created a video series, and now I'm here talking to you. It's like beyond my comprehension of how, when you follow your heart, when you follow the joy, when you follow what feels right in your soul, what inspires you, the universe has a way of supporting you, and your soul's purpose begins to show itself. And you just follow it, and you get in this flow, and life gets easy. And I'm not saying stuff doesn't happen, because life is hard, but it gets easier and it gets more enjoyable and more fulfilling. And that is what happened to me. And that's why when I speak to you, you could feel my excitement and my passion, because I'm living the life that I always desired. Now, with that said, it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies, because in order for me to do these things, I had to make sacrifice. Oh my God, you don't think I suffered when I left my job? I was in like fetal, sucking my thumb for like a year, trying to unravel the feelings of betrayal and pain and hurt that I had while I was there. But I aligned with it because of my patterns and my beliefs and my behaviors at the time. During this time, I had an estrangement with my mother. I had a reconciliation with my father. I had a baby daddy drama with my girl's biological father. My husband has since adopted my children, by the way. Just a little, fun fact. But all of these things that happened, I had to address my stuff in order to continue this path with ease and with flow and with love in my heart and joy and all of those things. And that is why I'm here. And that is why I write the books that I write and create the cards that I create and have these conversations, because it's not out of reach for any of us. We just have to commit to ourselves, love ourselves, and do the work of self-discovery.